talingim oh you narawra wal balula lembalti karin el malak karang aramata arangalage balwa madabe
malung total bera rogul adro ren setial reader la tutau malung la rogul guk me tiang wai sai guk pe bera rogul lam katmok la tial senterid au era do mu le agudur sia sus el mora rubul belau ma president ma rogul mutling ra am tigra blur belau ma togu betel magal del sus amora rogul adro ren setial program la tutau tial el programa el tutawa ngari aurol qadi milgat mok gire la gal ro al il madmul magadmo msada ge gidulur ya wera do mu ledik tigu aise selwan announcement wase a center ma Australian embassy amo hostra movie night tial movie night tamoringira a tune 7 lo mura elol moklok mo e aklo matedoba moria agora oat semong sibira adel me agora mungegalga akmong orang agora o mesetial movie ndiregal waseng moria agora bud lol olta agora gagros el activity mongal welga mar adra blu titrang rigil memt enjoy galbude agora gado mesetial movie el title nia a blue back tia Australian tia film seguido Australian embassy ma kora yuk sentera ma hostri alwase sea announcement dimle imo au era bodo mur tia shorgid en sagal mo o introduce a guest leader al tutau a tigal terul el guest leader al tutau ngaringel Olive Andrews nge executive telul selurior South Pacific Whale Research Consortium tia kora aladra milirok regal bulura tahiyo el musubat kora we lengai dawal kora pterir atara guest leader al tutau GRETA SARTORI ngal GRETA SARTORI nga tactical researcher la Coral Center ewa plel madala yegi dro gora ngora plel coordinate gel luror lo bangel ngai Olive Andrews el motmok lagi del tol 30 laurol wa gora survey marwa training marara ayal margol sunday malwaise alwaise de kulmo segi de bay do mutter program gid ma gumul gora odosya aulaul mora olip mul gora mo sado tel tora urela wel ma gale edmul so all the introduction is complete. At this time I would like to hand you the mic so you can kind of talk about or discuss the background of this research and things that kind of involved in this whole
so long, Asap. Thank you so much for having us on the show today. We are really honoured to be working with our colleagues at PICRC on this exciting new program. About 10 years ago now was the last time that marine mammals of cetaceans, whales and dolphins, were surveyed in Palau. And since that time, of course, we have the National Marine Sanctuary, and there's a lot more of need to understand which species are in the sanctuary. And so I was contacted myself and Tiare Holm, who many of you will know from her conservation background here in Palau. We were invited by King at the National Marine Sanctuary Office to develop a program for cetacean research capacity building with our PICRC colleagues in order that there is a capacity in country to do the research so we can understand which species of whales and dolphins exist in Palau, both coastal waters and in the sanctuary. How many of those animals are there? What's their abundance? What's their distribution? Where are they travelling to? Are they resident here in Palau or are they migrating through? and to understand some of how they're using their habitat. So the background is that it's been a while since we did whale research here, and we're delighted to be partnering with PICRC and with our government colleagues to run this program.
Okay, before we continue, I forgot to mention that I need to translate for the sake of those listeners. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that in the beginning. It's all right. So, ngal Oliver Andrew samal ko lasay last til surbera wera blue belau akme del ngara tri ra kala mla memo. Engia ngima ngale etiari holmo amiru segi del surbera wera tri ra kala mla memo. Mongora ngari segi del lomsubul momode ele mqtatal de loruni المولمون يا غاغي دل ngelo ngara sel obisri dra guktora research ratiale Palawan National Marine Sanctuary ilging amle kan taktring il tiari manganga sei nda simil gora gut makla atar omsub gira ya doktora wawel madolfin tel eotlela akling la tabel belaw mabodo gora madgek pose ngara sedem tigra igay ma adiregal omgo ko mo gora ma malmon omsu engra ngil ral dogi ngil giret tayid omsu masigi damle omrole ngal olibil may mang milgat mokla gayid ma sel dol ma program gid gad mo gora ogor gera gayid el karawrerir ma why is it important to survey whales?
Good question. So whales play a really important part in the ecosystem through eating the smallest fish in the ocean, our filter feeding baleen whales. Then when they poop in the area, they fertilize the surface waters with nitrogen and phosphorus. So they start the whole marine ecosystem.
Okay. Ngwase oliba seng klok tu tle galwel ay galwel tarapating lawel mga gal ara daw mela set tamang sel tong malwe sel a etial tong tira awalo ngoya sa gigid ara daw ngwal uli aku pesel life cycle ay gayid plankton samara say agora tetelela maklok tu tleleng parte da ecosystem omgora to mo kadungawel mo odibus en sibel ngari agora wabol sub malubeng wabol ko rotak tial el tokora ecosystem tial eotlela klingla dilbe adbel belaw. I understand your trip this time to Palau after 10 years. You did some sort of training, you want to build the capacity for the center people or whoever interested in a whale observation or monitoring. So I believe you did some sort of training and workshops, I know Greta was sort of like the main contact person for this program, and she was involved in all that. So Greta, would you want to tell us some of those workshop trainings that you guys went through?
Sure, Azap. Thank you for inviting me this morning at the radio show. And thank you, Oliver, for letting me participate in this workshop. It was an amazing experience. And I guess one of the most incredible things that we learned in this workshop, and also the most basic one, it was actually how many species of cetaceans, of whales and dolphins are in Palau. It was actually very surprising for me and for all my colleagues. We're actually marine scientists, so, you expect from us to know these things, but in fact, these things are pretty much unknown, if not between the experts. So one of the main takeaways from the workshop was like this mind-blowing amount of species of whales that we can find in the Palauan waters. And other than that, whaleology and their team, they taught us the best methodologies that we could put in practice to actually monitor these whales, understand what they're doing and where are they. And we span between different data collection methodologies, such as hydrophones, in which we put literally microphones in the water to try and record whale singing and talking between them. And then they showed us how to use these super expensive lenses, camera lenses, to take pictures from very far away. So we could ID the whales by taking pictures at their body markings, at their fins, and as well as giving us like a methodology to actually go out there with a boat and in predetermined tracks check where the whales are and how to identify their position and classify their movements or where they actually go and what they do.
Greta malgol wasesera almitirgal olive trainer tir itemlo drura agora training la sei magarada monitor ma libo agora o mesa gagi del wera aikela almolle tel hotelela adabel belau mongwasem botokol gora gagro suldong luluspe ngaria time tuluspe agora toaseng hydrophone aiga sorry so do you just basically dip the hydrophone in the water and listen? Yeah. Oh. Chel hydrophone agora wal tretelela a mic. I'm just you trying to explain the hydrophone is kind of similar to something like a mic.
Yeah. Waterproof and it goes down about 10 meters. Oh. But we also used one which we could tow behind the kedam.
Okay. Oh, me la seguí del hydrophone el dongo. Totong lil mora ngara three el mirror en el adao. Three el motor en el adao. E ogor orange. Si lo orange a wel ma ngara mara agora mengitak malu ngaria gel otro ngari tira mdu mta. Tadi orange mdek bongengaral. Ma tara dong lo speringi aguk tilung lo kobsira tial bilas langari emra la bilas el soro emur seringi til orang sa gigi del kagrosel. So through the microphone can you distinguish the different can you identify which whale did the last sound or last talking or can you is there a way to Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So each of the different species has a different dialect, just like us. And they are usually in different geographies. They have a different language, even if they're the same species, very similar to humans. So, in fact, when we had some of the recordings of Palauan sperm whales, the big ones that you see off the east coast, these animals are super deep diving. They can dive to 3,000 meters, and they communicate only with clicks. And like a Morse code, they make a pattern with the clicking sounds, and that's their language. So when we recorded them, it was involved in a global analysis of sperm whale dialect, and we found out the Palauan sperm whales' cultural identity, and they're related to whales in Northern Marianas and in Papua New Guinea, and we can tell that just from their sounds.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Malgo olive la se oi ay galwe la adio angorak medul way gitar ad gal el gusira ra upebira blu way gal gusira belaw angan gat tigingir el ngegi del malgo sengora war adal kay dio si siul ad ndigu oboratara blu mal bentara region en telgibul gu kora mogod at tigingir ra gal gu tol mumbulgu lak moy gal werbe ay gal gusira belaw agel tingel sel bolo lablom ko siya agel bek klom subul nam katmo krabul adrogir en telgib el gora ngod agal gusira gid ma gusira amarialas awado dura set tora gasens tora related indi segid el tingil at telgib el ngod ngegida oliblo acha sei agegid el sperm whale malmora atmol da malmorio atingin la kukora diwa tetele la adoro sel dol ko sabak la imad ko ang wadi click hindi along itak ko gel bebil gora adoren singil gora blin se mga ngem del blel sound wadi click wow, very interesting. And so Greta, continue on. So you did all that how did the training or the workshop going on before you go out?
So our workshop in the classroom showed a very high interest. We had many people from PICRC participating from many of our departments, and it was great to train, so many people with different backgrounds to just even, to light up this interest in whales, because there's so much disinformation. Nobody thinks about whales. Everyone just thinks about the tunas. So I think that was very beneficial for all of us. And we will still have, now we know the methods, but then we also have to do all the analysis of the data following this. So perhaps this will give us other opportunities for training. Maybe we were hoping to deploy a long-term hydrophone, so put that underwater for 1 year or whatsoever to record all the whales possible passing around there. But then after that, we will have so many data, for instance, right? So perhaps we could train someone for his master's, for his dissertation, could do this project. So we could start to build, high-level expertise in whale research in Palau locally, which is perhaps one of the follow-ups of these workshops.
Right. I understand before you guys start doing the monitoring, you had like a couple of days or so in, doing
a couple of days in the classroom where we went through all the different ID, so how we learned how to recognize all the different species, and as well as like on paper all the methodologies like such as the hydrophones or the picture, the line transect that then we had the chance to put in practice for the 2 following weeks, which we had some nearshore surveys about maximum 5 miles offshore from the reef. Followed by offshore surveys, which were between 10 and 12 nautical miles of the reef, in which we tried also to check a bit inside the PNMS what we could find.
Okay, ang maloko greta lo asese sira alme ngaji del olip giba training ang mlariak me del 2 days ang ngeru club sel blara ko classroom suba gel ka krosel tretelela tiagi del toro subela wel mlodru gel gora ID magrada identify wel malu magrada la sengeng ngarang ma adire gel gegi del gora seng magrada spai gegi del hydrophone gegi del dongul do lablo tu wala da orange dire gel la training gora si sel do orange gegi da wal gora ngagi del sound sen sing wal al da al malubeng in sound ringel ngarak lel wel gegi del ka krosel tenti la training mela sera bon break tial surbam le tablo المظال ملاني على سلسل 5 miles سلسل يم المار أكل المول علون متمكرني يشربوا المريك ملاني أقوك سربل ديرغلون متمكرني را سل لكلا 5 miles مالبن يم المال مرا 12 miles كله PNMS ورام لسوريل مسوبة جيد التبلول سيد المرا فيلد تيرا أول بارت تيال ترين راسي تسيلو برا سلا كلاس روم يقال ورا تتلي لادو ado subawel egore todo el monge engaji del oliva o algo ragai de tiret mongtmok lagi del super al sela training agreta mo la sei ngalungi la dogora momdur tay del training ra wawel len sebed legi del la center oral gire tel PNMS wallo suba gal mela am go sebela adul kwa bodo gora dedicated malubang adul de training pal momdur tay del uror en sebel kukora momadad selbol torawel selbol todo umsubul motial PNMS en que gidla da kuado da segdos penil mol lo mesa gidlen la momudura que rogul tingil tagil torawel la gusira ma ruale il madmul diregal molgo lo ase ya greta molgo lo ase gelel sedel diregal gora ngogip tagi gelel sedel gora identify gora ngal school sori tagi el torawel gusira mado kora wado rimertil momola gukmomru la babilingir kora wabolo la skuli rigiret tagidrom subela tora gusira mal interesting tial and so what are some of the challenges that you guys encounter during this
well
technology.
Yes, studying whales requires a lot of things to align. First, you need to have good weather conditions. You need to have a boat that has a high viewing platform so you can spot them far away. And you need all of your various equipment to work. And in our case, we had problems charging our hydrophone initially, and we had some problems with we were working from the KIDAM in a partnership with Ministry of Justice, with our marine law, who were incredible and were a great host to us. And but the ship is designed for search and rescue, so it has big engines, and so it's very noisy. And this would mask the sounds of some of the whales that we saw. So there was some technical challenges, but we still have some exciting announcements about what we saw out there.
Yeah, I see. Oliva molgo la saigel gora wal monday malubeng kora amlo rubtak raurol blol sisbral sela say ako te tiale kadam tamal masawla adra marin low no so sibil gongel lowro lobongela pigrig matriga idal adra tokora subela aguzira mumlos ilo dersiabil singir matamlaringi mengmal tamal masawla adra marin low mumlos bil kutmok la kora bebi raurol logusil bilas digel kora wa blol lurbat takle lauro rawa say ako te segidil bilas ramarin low malibent tialurior أو سبيرا أبيلاس السبيل غورا والقذي تيال يغرق لاجي غامبري قذي ذاي تيال ذبتل من وابول بيوت تيرا مود اور سربابه او مساوي لمرال بدوليني ورنسا اوترا غير المارا او غيرو ترام لو بروبليم غورا بلو موغاري تيغا سالورو تيال راسي تيال غدام الرول غير لا غورا اباترول ما سوتش ريسكيو klom siringi mung maklok tial otoringi mung direk sel ngarnging al bebi rata mung kora wabol lakal salungi remeng sa ngarela bebi rawel maklo otor tial mesin ngegi da olibil mulmul mulasi ma aigal kora adong roma mung kora walakal salmal ngal bebi rata mung momring til charge agel ra hydrophone mara kora walutel mal elabat long tip taseng lo elabat teri regal bel dongurtir mung ngumel lasing ngom sindel dongu ma agegidel gora ngom sindel dongu se agora wabol urbat kleuror mongora soal logerina sei ngwangara gel guk urol bla lorura agal bebi rablu guk podren segel maybe agegidel dongu lo spela sengwara tetele yeah so when you did the well survey in other countries of course the boat and everything was like perfectly tailored for that
Yeah, we can use different vessels, and in the Pacific Islands, often you have to use what's available to us, the best vessel available. And when we last did the survey in Palau, we actually used a liveaboard, a private catamaran, and it was volunteers from the US that brought the ship here to Palau as the survey vessel. And it's very quiet because it's a sailboat, so it was very good for towing the hydrophone array, but it's very slow, and it was low on the water, which meant our visual survey effort had other challenges. So there's always a trade-off. Yeah. But in other places, I have studied whales from waka, a traditional voyaging canoe. I've studied whales from a boat the size of this table in Niue in 3-meter seas, and I've also studied from large cruise ships. So we can learn a lot about whales and dolphins from opportunistic platforms. Yeah.
Oh, mulko laseng salo galo mlamo mregalom subera agagi tora kusira malwa angara kaseng elasel last lob subulururi bela ora tri rakam na memong angal tira ngaria tara adel ngaria rolel mlom tigra gel do selib oborda alib oborda gel artu umblay lom bibakla turista keringi mel albakla last lob subira tri rakam na memong ngaria tara amle valentil mo seguid el surbera blur belaw el bayile yegid lib oborda el mer belaw msia qora mal mlongol tangtir mtmal mlongol gutmok lom subra da ala gel lib oborda arrulo tagra okka mun giren mal gora kwata giren mal gora da al saklo murum ga otora amsini enya ngagid mulgo la sei mlangara gal dio magala salak medro tele bitsiarwa samil tiangara klel bilas egal do makal layar sung andire kal mlasurba awel nga gigid mlasurba awel nga egal el moklol cruise ship egal gu hotel lo tara okya kal maral milok rablulad bek padengela mang I guess so do you think if we wanted to continue this research into the future, do you think we can still use kadam or
It's an excellent vessel.
Even though it's a very loud noise, but we can still, have no choice.
I think we, in all of the research that we do, we learn lessons about, what works and what doesn't, and how we can troubleshoot. So the Kidam is an excellent vessel. The crew were fantastic, and we saw a lot of amazing things which we wouldn't have seen if we were working from a smaller vessel. So we will we'll change perhaps the way that we use the hydrophone and instead deploy the long-term acoustic recorders, which can determine which whales are present and at what times of the year. And we'll do the visual survey from Kidam. But we can also use other technology like drones to go above the whales and take photographs, so we know how many are in the pod, and we can tell things like their body condition, if they've been feeding well, and if they're pregnant, things like that from just aerial photography. So.
As long as there's not too many frigate birds.
Yeah, the birds don't like the drone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ang malaka olive la se oi, mal me to gim kora te gidel lomrolil mo to ka kora blal subu. Sebil lo mes la sei. Ma am ko mo mot mo ko teluro al mral mormadat en raigel gu kwal mla kaloro el tel lomre kalomroled. Mesel do bodoro ngarmadat en se der gu ko siga gel mos el mosu gidel. Tira gidel mo mencionar wa drone. Ndire kal ngarial do sen hydrophone. Tesoril hydrophone te hidrol goni sen ngora Michael se dungun ma bertakle oreng sa otto lang relarm ngarial dula sen hydrophone el amo mosil micro lele ngulo rubetil mora bertakle kumedel ngara 6 to 12 months kumedel ngara tarak seguida lor betil mong ogore dio mesla sei ngaral we la malangalak kertial de belbelau ay agora bebira. Speaking about deploying the hydrophone, has there been sort of like a location where most of the whale are passing by, or just around the whole Palau, or is there a certain area in Palau?
Good question. So we published the first scientific publication in a peer-reviewed journal on the cetacean distribution and diversity in Palau in just December. So we have 15 species confirmed and another 7 species likely or probable. There has been anecdotal sightings, but we may not have had a photograph of them. And during this last 2 weeks, we've already confirmed 2 of the species that we thought were likely, and we know that what we thought were the hotspots was between Oolong and Peleliu on the west coast. Yeah, and then out east off Short Drop-Off, which is on the 1,000-metre depth contour, where the slope drops to 1,000 metres, is very much the habitat for the sperm whales and the beaked whales, the cryptic deep-diving animals. So,
Short Drop-Off.
Yeah, short drop off. Is that what I? Sorry.
Yeah,
short drop off.
Okay, nga kita olive la se oi. Sel nomre kalom subir tel truira kamla mong. Ngwal ngaria pasel blol beting la se. Ay ya blol gora wal ngaria gagi del guchira. Atara gel basio a sel nuestra de longolela a ulo ma ablilio. Matara basio tiale el krela el bulu. Ay kita blabol betig lo aseng blol ngaria guchira. So in the future, if we manage to, or if the whole collaborating team manage to find a deep water hydrophone, are those the spot that you would like to?
Yeah, I think short drop-off or somewhere there would be really useful, somewhere on the east coast and somewhere on the west coast. The hydrophones that we're going to use, they want to be in about 100 metres of water, and on a good day they can hear over 10 miles. So we can pick up species, particularly the sperm whales, their calls we can hear from a long way away. And for the west coast, we're going to do a little bit of research. I think Pat and Laurie have done quite a lot of work on the bathymetry. So we'll assess some areas where there's a good depth, and it has to be flat, because if it's a sloping surface, our gear going to slide down into the Palau Trench. So we have to find a good spot that we can anchor it.
Oh, so basically this hydrophone doesn't need to go into 1,000 meters.
No, it can be
just 300 meters. You set it up, and then it can.
It listens. Yes.
You say hydrophone, I was thinking about like 1,000 meters or something. Anyway, Oliva say, "Oh, gay del hydrophone, amalungil na lo gay del basyo. Leng se el mo sugi del ngara gay del basyo o reng sa gay hydrophone am sisi klal. Se el rong siya otto lang rela wel mo ngara ata truil telal mala aridel." mela moktegertira seta soril au erabol lo top da yid hydrophone de soril gora gut moklasur bela sei ngara maral area ra blur belau atia yid east ma west amalungil se do gel hydrophone ling sel hydrophone lo ballo gap sei mora abertak seguir el ora gora ba modet gora malmal tel area ni asel gora ngara slop el abol makita asel molol dongle len diada Group tomorrow they are bloom but the rescuing. Anyway, wow, very interesting the work you have been doing in Palau. I believe that you kind of, so you said out of seven whales from the previous survey that you weren't sure about, this time you were able to identify 2 of them.
Yes, which is very exciting. So we have Kogia simus, which is the dwarf sperm whale. So it's just like its larger cousins, the big sperm whales. It has asymmetrical blowhole on the left side of its head, and it feeds on squid. It's a deep diver, and we have not seen them before on scientific survey effort. So we were able to confirm the little sperm whales, the Kogia, are here, and the other exciting one was actually not seen on our survey, but we were able to confirm from photographs from GRETA.
Oh,
so I asked Greta to tell.
Actually, that was a good coincidence. Nearly 2 years ago, while we were researching on other matters with PICRC, PNMS research about tuna larvae and BRAV and camera deployments, we actually ended up in a very weird situation in which we were completely surrounded by whales. And there were 3 sperm whales, another big pod of what could have been melon-headed whales, but we couldn't take any picture of those. And then eventually another group of whales showed up. We just looked to me like very big dolphins, but I took some pictures because they were relatively close to the boat. And now that these experts from whale research just came to Palau, I showed them my picture, and apparently these are super rare whales, some of the most understudied, cryptic and unknown whales of the world. And in my picture you can actually see that they even have calves, so they have puppies. Apparently these whales use the PNMS to just breed and other than living here probably most of their life, which is really incredible. And I wouldn't have known this, nobody would have known this if we didn't go through this training, highlighting how important training is.
أترى أجل كلود الجسيرة المودع على identifier على استلم سوب تري رام لاممون أتمنى إلى الرقم رسيل قرا والدان التبلوم يا إيموريني الدولار سين مجيكري سيدولار سين قرا وادا سين كوبي تول سبورميل أترى أجل مكلود سبيسيس راويل إني أحمل دوايين دينجيكري بلول دين إلو سين غارتل تبلبلو إنك أجد الملقول وسيا كريتا ديريغل tu arwak reta ku no tu erura ma memo tu so temlo otto bedul gora di miru la ku tiurerir tel PNMS e ogore a emerald me e tarata emerald volto del PNMS el mortal PNMS tel ke kala almol ngari abto ku siral medum el gora ngar oro de tmiles e bebilah mal mlekmed magreta malasya singni engai gidel oliva mlei e madon ila sei ngal mila sia singni atara gel cluid el dim laqda danga mela gel cluid el gora wadir gel dirga kal sal malung el su malbet tmang awal tablonya mlamadang ngar belaw ya greta senga gel welgi mil sanga ngania ngal gel mung zed el digro o umral wasi ngai gel lingla sia singni greta gel el dirga el gora el bela dil ngar al sel belaw ay da gel bebra trentin om sub el doral mo insad el mol mogora o ngera gel
Species was a Longman's beaked whale.
Longman's beaked beaked whale or Indo-Pacetus. So it's like the bottlenose, the tropical bottlenose whale. Yeah.
Beaked whale.
A beaked whale, yeah.
Very big teeth, right, the males.
And of course that species can be found in other places.
Yes, but until only 10 years ago, we only knew this species existed because of skulls that had been found on the beach before. So they're very, very shy, and now we have a few more records from around the world, but we know nothing about their breeding or feeding and migration. So it's a very exciting.
I think somebody is trying to call, so okay, let's get that call, eh?
Okay.
Ali caller kangara air. Sorry, mle hang up.
Sorry. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we have one more exciting. We had two more exciting sightings actually.
Three.
Oh yeah, quite a few.
A lot.
But I'll ask Greta to tell you about the Brutus whales. But we saw one species which is a new species record for Palau, never been seen here before, and that's the sei whale. So it's a large baleen filter feeding whale. They migrate from Kamchatka in Russia and off the coast of Japan down to the Pacific to breed. So we saw sei whales, and we saw it breaching fully out of the water, and we also saw it pooping, which means a very interesting data point for us because it means those animals are feeding in Palau as well as breeding here potentially. So sei whales, new species record.
When you say, what's the term again? Burping?
Pooping, well, defecating, poop.
Pooping.
Yeah.
I thought burping, you know.
I mean, maybe she did that too.
Burping from the back end.
Okay. And so, you say that baleen whale was first sighted in Palau. And you believe it's probably from the Kamchatka or something in Russia and then traveling.
Yeah.
Wasang nga tara kusiral alil sara tegi dirgam lomregal wala training ma abri sa omsu belawel ilga lodong lil wasang baklora sel eastern region of Russia lo wasang Kamchatka or something. Engar segi de emral melmera wasyabal emral melmem melmera belaw. Matadira kal diri ko kora o mesasay ngang merbela lang amel me lalubeng. So is it safe to say most whale are probably giving birth in a sort of like warm water?
That's right. So these the filter feeding whales travel to polar regions to feed normally, and then they travel 5,000 kilometers to tropical waters to breed, because if they had their calf in the cold polar seas, the calf doesn't have enough blubber to survive there. So they come to warm waters. But in this case with the sei whale, we know that it was feeding in Palau waters as well, which is not unusual for the Brutus whales, but for sei whales we wouldn't expect them.
It was also the wrong season for mating, right? For them to be here, so they might be doing more than just breeding and eating, perhaps just leaving here. We don't know.
We don't know yet, but exciting.
Oy, toasang ang gigil sei whale amler belaw. Asabedra se temilsal tuang mombulgasang umur ratel dabel belaw. Indim blagtak lo sei ay gal gusira ang gigil sei whale ang gekera mal maglol tildaw. Arctic. Egore kmedra 5,000 imertelal kilometa loranil melmera blur belaw me sel summer el melme tiga say ngado nga sing melme mung ay gida bebira adir lolas mum subra kan pada time indi temilsan melmer belaw mung bulgulak mo indi blagtak lo say gal rogul gusira marwalin sindil merega gidil goram ke gal dadbel bulu yomel lesel sumong ayel wera wa article alom el rang ligil say en mo de alsal sira rang ligil survival ng wal mililut sel budel muliliw temnakal inaflo tura akil dila batengel ngal tolol gusira mong map mamlaktak rasi arugul bela da ital bela da bela am bela جيد مقال الضابي يوم ال say why say gid أول من غير clear gid I just wanted to point out that our ancestors must have seen maybe when they go fishing in the by the barrier reef, they must have seen whale outside, immediately outside, because we have a term. We have a term for whale. We call whale el-il.
El-il.
El-il means whale in our language. That's why I said, yeah, go ahead. Let's get that goal, eh?
Ali color ngara air.
Hoy malungit total wey ba radio ma asa malungit total melgaw ma tilgal gestrao. Oleh asa ma ulo modo oleh ngalinya experience na el milesa lagi del wey lo mel. Oleh ang sila nanti nairi o ngalamid nairi ngalinya bilas el saire ngaklet el merchal bela oleh sel bilas ta milses blas longle ngal mea usma. La tiagi de bulai. Oleh kagim nar segi bilas ngalinya roga rai lile kanklel amne kyapte gani. Ngani ada siapa lagi miracle ngasih bilas. Nesalo mesai gagi del gucira. Enggak orange lu asesel ngarai prol. Morame blol mekmer. Rabela bra east. Makama de kilo bra. Alai tahu senari digri. Emral seguida kursa kama mol. Lagi mauri cerang ada leceng 3 to 4 miles. Emil sagora atel ngabe mebun bebula ga bulga maklu ndi tia mak meter gamam leng langa lechen 300 mil either gamam or 200 mil sam agi moral mong ole ngania ngora ngania adalgel kan me bumar bab magi moral mutin mokme egi botial lava di ngora orange galu ringi engani atun magala ku chira tril maklo magala ku chira mo anal ngalgel malge gel brek ngalban raklo etial daba diras ma ngai gi ruba la siawla sei ngai gi gu chira mlam ngai gi domis ringi ngal mangani asa singilingila olen ding himna ka kapinil gubang ndi sei del tambe agi mile sei agi gu chira ego man chulang malungila sior gumibu
consular information. He was just saying some years back in the 90s, they went out with some Japanese, this is not a researcher, this Japanese guy just wanted to watch a whale. So they went out with one of the liveaboard, out from the lighthouse, about 4 miles out, and they show some sort of something on the surface of the water. So they went over, when they went over, there's 3 big whale, and the water was kind of bloody. And there's a small, shall we say, pup or calf?
Calf.
Calf. With a woman. So the Japanese told this Palawan people that whale just gave birth. He just want to share that to us. That was in the 90s.
Thank you, caller. That's super interesting. I mean, there's a lot of species that are breeding here in Palau, so they are Palauan whales, even if they migrate somewhere else afterwards, you know. They're a shared responsibility across the countries that they migrate to, but they're Palauan because they're born here.
That's their passport.
Yes.
Okay, so going forward with this whale research, what sort of benefits do you see, in the future?
Look, I think firstly there's probably some publications that will come out of this very recent research, because not only did we see a new species, but we saw killer whales, and we recorded for the first time the dialect of the killer whales that come to Palau. So that's extraordinary, because straight away with a very short analysis we can see that the killer whales here, their dialect or their language is related to the offshore killer whales off Alaska and West Coast Canada. So that's a significant finding as well.
Excuse me, I think there's another call.
Ali color ngara air.
Oi, soal di angarecho tigal mal.
Oh, that's it? Oh. No, the caller was just saying, I just wanted to like encourage the people. Thank you so much for doing this work.
So long.
But that's a lot of interesting ways, right? And wait, we didn't even tell you the most exciting. We are getting there with all the exciting things.
We saw a lot, but yeah, in the future.
And another research that can come out of this, we observed together with the experience I told you before about our old field work back in 2022, where we saw so many whales together. It happened during our surveys this year that 10 miles pretty much outside of Oolong, we saw feeding frenzy, what we would call a feeding frenzy, in which we saw 4 Brudas whale feeding together with a school of what we believe could have been great hammerhead sharks from our fin ID, together with so many different species of birds, including frigate birds, and everything was happening in 100 meters square. Like probably they were all feeding on bait fish, like all the tuna, shark, whales, all together. And this highlights how important is also Palau in his oceanography, and how the currents around Palau determines these grounds for the whales to feed and breed and find everything that they really need. So another study that we're going to follow up to is trying to understand what these big groups of whales doing their things relate to ocean, like in the ocean. What's happening in the ocean? How are the currents, the temperature looking? Which is, for me, very exciting. But above all, it was incredible to see something like that. Even the captain of Kedam was very impressed, and after seeing something like that, he said, I haven't seen this all my life. So what he said that really stuck with me is like, the PNMS must be working, right? Like if someone with such an experience out at sea sees something like that and see how the importance of really protecting the ocean, and that was great to see.
Ali caller ngara air.
Malungin tu tau asa oleh kam tirgal okya tirgal scientist. Makatara mangit oleh disokal share bebira information dire kalungil omo kertir tirgal tadimru legal study al malloms le gamma ma vai ol self segi mara era segi del bashora mutiaur sel mutiaur maktil sha segi igel self segi momal aki orreng sa ngarel olel ahmal medra apkula almol ding klabse o musindra ta men sel klormerem se klormerem begi gid tablo bashor mal batoga umringi magiblo lo mal se klabse digi mal orreng sa ngarel lagi ngara aptil sha se omal العملات 2 hours يقوم المرا متيار سلجي برا متيار ماجي مو ماجي رينس ماجي العمل غلقرب كل المول رحمل مكميد السلبول كلوب شيء من قرا دي سؤال مبدئ ستيغات دي مرو لاستادي الملومس السوم دي ملومس يجي sound system or whatever they use in ملا sound اللي لو البلانت متيار سل المول متيار ماشاس ملولا data as audio or sound. Di gida di so at sir on manom sao.
Okay, gaman sila. Musawrong el goler bebira information. Ay ga information malungil sila mkolol melo aise. Len se ved lo mesra sei. Ay gang kadamakarang motrang tingil kaluror mo mas edugot maklawng luror. Anyway, the last caller was calling that he's a fisherman. And he said when it's new moon, there's no moon, it's dark, they're fishing in a shash corner in Mutiaur,
Sure. Yes.
And they said they hear like whales probably coming close to the reef because they can clearly hear it loud and clear. So he was curious. He doesn't know because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
He was asking, do these scientists only do the research during the daytime? And if it is, maybe we can think about putting some of those hydrophone in somewhere in those corner. They might record something interesting at night. It's just the information that he want to share with us.
Oh, it's a very excellent point, and it's exactly what we hope to achieve with the long-term acoustic recorders, because they can be listening when we can't see the whales, but we can hear them, then we can have an understanding of their movements. But we generally know a lot of the dolphin species and the small whales in Palau are feeding on squid, usually offshore at nighttime, and then they come in closer to shore for resting during the day. But that's a general pattern, and we know that they're travelling around Palau in different times of the day. And
I think
we
that's
have another caller.
Wow.
Wow.
We our previous talk show, we hardly had that before. It looks like this subject is very popular.
Most popular.
Everyone loves whales.
Ali caller kang ara air.
Oi, malungil tu tao Mr. BUKURROU asap ti scientist asap akura orense malungil at sumung di ko rambo niya concern na el sa species ra whales pero ako gel sa kologel wasi tirkat kumigo mal tirkat scientist mal dim subay I call whales other whales el to so el mo tialo musuben diria kal include ra igel guk a whales igel artificial whale michael artificial the mul ngartial the better and los per adrasina mar adras rosiang gel met mul me spire git len aula gugel wa isen gora gora dingani magmandra blula ade tirkam na bombrula technology ngarungu dungwera uben kamasil mara spire git len nang michael tool ngarang tel defense meram arar da ma ay gagi dele ngaura la moria enemy git la polos pe awel me por kan su mastigel sensor ngwera ng lor polo la michael el detect ay git mata warner git mata warner defense brigade mal din keringan awels pero mal masulang
Okay, Sulang. That was kind of off track a little bit, but let me just ask you for the sake of the caller. He was curious if this hydrophone can detect for example like underwater drones. He was concerned about the security of Palau.
Yeah, absolutely. So hydrophones were first designed exactly for that reason by the navies of the world, just particularly in the Second World War. They used underwater microphones to pick up foreign submarines. But in actual fact, when marine mammal scientists were able to review the recordings from these deep-sea hydrophones, the Navy were hearing these low-frequency sounds and they couldn't work out what it was. And so they brought in the whale scientists, and it turns out they had recordings of blue whales, the largest animal that's ever lived on our planet, recorded from the Navy hydrophones. So this is how our study of acoustics of whales started.
And so if we deploy those hydrophones, I'm sure you might capture some sound that
The secrets of the military.
or some sounds that you probably will never know.
Yeah.
Maybe through that hydrophone we can probably find out what's going on. I guess he was more concerned about he mentioned like Russia, all these neighboring.
We're just gonna listen to whales.
Yeah, I was going to say this is about all about whales, but
Actually, we do use the hydrophone to listen for, we call it anthropomorphic noise, right? So we want to understand all of the boats mainly, right? The boats that are used in Palau, especially going out offshore drop-off, the ships come in and out. We need to understand how the sounds of whales interact with the sounds made by humans and what our impact might be. So we do look not only at the whale sounds, but at the noises that we introduce into the ocean and how that might impact the whales.
Oh, wow, very interesting. Tara tong tingit ka lang suba sa yung hydrophone, hindi ka dilo ring sa whale, tadira ka malas say tial rod lang al siya daw. Kudo ring sa whale, tial rod al gidar ada otobdi ay gale otorabilas ma ma ngidin ngal mklol msil dorara daw. Tadira ka kor omes say tiang ngaria wa bol temeli tial klangar ngal gusira. Tor omes ay gide dira tral ko osigla say. Al salmo kloro dan semel gora wal temlia klangar ngal gusira. Mal interesting talom subun. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Ali caller kang ara air.
Oo, sa Kalmora Air. I just got confirmation from Oli. I was reading about the blue whale, the biggest whale on earth. Is it true that their mouth is open, then that the whole Palau can get in? Is that true, or it's just a documentary that I read?
Thank you for the question, caller. to give a perspective of the size of a blue whale's mouth, you could fit an elephant or a small car in the mouth of a blue whale. I'm not sure we could fit all of the population of Palau, but certainly about an elephant's worth.
So I guess a final question. We're coming. I guess we're a bit past the time. We're supposed to be done by 9. But one more question. So how do you see this? All these benefits of this, or the result of these studies we're doing, benefit the Palau communities?
Good question.
I mean, if you can just share something like that. Otherwise, yeah.
So whales around the Pacific are an important economic and cultural resource. So in many Pacific Island countries, whale watching provides benefits to communities. Whale watching is indeed feasible in Palau, and we are working with MAF, with PICRC, with Marine Law, and our colleagues at the Environment Department and Tourism, all of the agencies responsible to look at developing a responsible whale watching tourism in Palau that could benefit communities.
Yeah, I see.
That's one way that they benefit, but they benefit the health of our seas. Yeah.
Ngay sa igal lululot bok la igal gora klungal sa del marinha ko teng tingil tial tingil tial lugal aklangar a PNMS tial hotel la akling la de bebelaw nga tarak klol ngal gutsira marwado mul maalil ntara awal klol tingil tial klangar tiagidel el PNMS mungil bodo subul mo mdengay mabot sa protect ni lel sugum modibus ngalwel en sebel wal gora amornya angal sangsel malu mo gora proptakla atlil malu betial klangar PNMS akan tam la mention something mal important point kasi ndiral sa los perang galwen gora wal indicator alu beng gora wal lola lo say malamo magalda atial al meled marwawel am lamorio or something ayagi dagel betokol esel tara mal klor tingila la klung yol el mergit asabed el malas mel develop paigel klora blula de rangal dula seng whale watching activity to tourist telmel gukmal sori lo mesar bagusira mong temal di mo masara ora klol bilas emerald table todo la krel emal de mesa gusira se atras el ngulo gyo ay gidel tora ora klakan godang very interesting research you're doing, and hopefully we can continue to collaborate and bring it to the next step. So I'm sure now, Greta, you have a contact with Olive. You want to communicate and see what can we do to improve or advance our whale study research.
Absolutely, and I want to say a big sulang to our wonderful hosts at PICRC. It's been such a pleasure working with you, and we call it 360 learning, where we're learning just as much from our colleagues here as they're learning from us, and it's been such a privilege. We've learned a lot, so thank you so much for hosting us.
Maloko Olive laseng ko kumal sulal ko ra host ramam tial lo subulo niya Olive ngoro ngala klaseng 360 ngado sental do mitokul ngaw ole lo mitokul ma dimeliwe ke talom su ngarias ilguk subira adobet magita ngaria ukto subitin mong dingway sayidel mong mal mrenga soidel girel sel tal ko partnership ga mot mo ko tal tokora ure la wela. You want to say something before I close?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Olive and team, for teaching us so much. It was an incredible experience, especially to get, to experience those sightings out there and know what's really out there. Give me even more motivation to stay here and try and help as much as I can and trying to understand as much as I can. So keep in touch for sure. We have a lot to work with, and thank you so much for having us here at the radio show as well. Thank you, ASAP, for hosting us today.
Thank you.
Oy tokora di mereng asal lang neta to bet silmenga sulela Olive no sebelme kora mastira gai training soril mo mulmol kora adadu communicate el gire la gel wa future lom sub la seng moral wara improve malu bet kut muklit lom sub la aku siram kadu koreak mora sen next el dawo alwa se seguida agora hablo lo programa brigida era don sim e di bok tu igal wa sei mon club tutle la agora brief center lo ro lo tritiga de partners lo el build sel capacity ra ra center mangi di la bela el gire la wa ga de tora urore sel capacity building toka kagaro sul gusiral marwa admul ngara adbel belau mal que gre blado subil girira ayayi del el gusira madmul mon un lado lo mal bertay del uron bolsebe del mut el momento que beto el tranquila klangara admul mai gal gusira adbel belau un balu la rud bertay del moral lurora mlamos de identify bebira a gusiral nya dim lagal ngara adbel belau amin mla bel bela dim laqdo dnge laqdo mla mom dnge kedem la identify esel mom gulbo la se again nsebe del gora en gore chatay del gora well study identify el basio mom dnge ka cross species la garina blue belau ma bod promote agora wa well watching tourism activity kedem el basio la garngi e dire el modina sei ngara blagardira galarm masel bodo mes ngral blagrad la adugingi en ya sal gora harass malu be gora put them in a stressful condition gora rule trail mo ay gida gel gora adim le so del gora el toxergid akmal ayamara station ngmlamo tri el bunga da pasa sel teme de momrek ma gomen chanis ma sal ya lo acho malom saro gul me oren setel program en dimet tagi de magsimir masel gukmel balsel mamal bisulang okay
Talingim oh you Tarawra wardal balula Lembalti Karin El malat karang aramata Arangalage Balwa Magabe Klagarage